Welcome to this Kiali community meeting. So today we finished Sprint 58. Today we are going to release the Kiali version 1.36. And in this session, we are going to change a little bit the agenda to make this session more a community meeting with an open agenda, so where we can bring community discussion, so anyone from the community can bring any topic. Also, we will, as usual, to review what will be the highlights for the Kiali version 1.36. Also, we will have some folks to preparing and presenting lighting demos. We will have today Jay, Nick, Alejandro, showing new features that I hope that you will find it quite interesting. Remember, the first part of the session is recording and it will be updated in YouTube. And when we open for open question, we will stop recording to invite anyone to make questions, comments, ideas, anything that you want to, right? So this is the idea. Okay, so community discussion. So please, if you don't follow the Kiali project in Twitter, please do, because it's all the updates for the project, all this session, when we have new video or any interesting thing, our community manager, Xavi is updating all related information from Istio and Kiali. Also, if we are using more and more the discussion under the GitHub Kiali project, and you will see interesting discussion about design, the future design of Kiali, about several high-level topics. So we are very transparent and we are open brainstorming a lot of topics that are very active also in the Istio community, in the service mesh in general community. Yeah, we would like you to participate on those, and whatever idea that you would like to bring. Everything is welcome. So please come to us to participate. Also, we finished the Sprint 58. Let me to give a brief highlights that what we have accomplished. So as usual, all that we do in the Sprint is under the GitHub projects of Kiali. So just a high-level number, we merged more than 40 pull requests, closing 20 issues. We still have some issues in the backlog. All that these issues are public, and you can help us indicating what has more priority for you. We try to prioritize any bug or anything that's coming from the community first, but yeah, for feedback is really good for us to put what should be the next things to work, right, in terms of priorities. Just to give an idea, so we are mostly this sprint, we have a half between bug fixings and also new enhancements. But to that, yeah, we will try to show you some of the new features that you can see in this version, right? One of them is the metric tab improvements. So now when you navigate into the details pages, you are going to see that now the metrics tabs in the inbound, outbound, or the runtime have a more overview base to do that. So in that way, you will see all the charts that are present or collected in Kiali. In the previous version, you need to scroll down, and sometimes we have some feedback from the community that they didn't know that we have more charts because they couldn't see. They need to scroll down all the page. So I can give you a quick demo about this feature. So this is my Kiali. If I go to the graph, you will see a demo that is also using service entry to connect to other places. If I click here, for example, I go to the details to this application, which is receiving traffic from one workload, is also communicating with an external URL. And if I click in the outbound metrics, I will see now all the charts. What is interesting thing. So improvement of this session is that if I add more series, histograms, or other values, so now the metrics chart, the legends is adapted in a best way. So if I collapse the page, so the legend now is also moved to ellipses, and I can show all the series that are in highlight charts, and I don't miss the reference, but all the metrics that are available under that, right? Also, this works in the same way for example, for runtime metrics. Remember, the runtime metrics are optional metrics that I can enable in my workload for a specific runtime that I want to add this extra information. So this is completely adapted to the size of the window, right? And I can use the maximize as always to show more details. All right, so yeah, related to this feature, the Kiali internal metrics has been improvement. So I don't know if you are aware that under the Kiali workload, there are special metrics that are collected just to give information that how Kiali is working. So these metrics have been improved in the, okay, what are the endpoints that are that Kiali is using, what is the response sign of these employees, right? And it can give you more information on how Kiali is behaving. This is especially useful on those scenarios that we receive from the community that are working in big clusters with big number of workloads, and sometimes they report some slow, some delay. So this is a way to start to debug which endpoint could be give you, worse performance compared with others. Also, all these metrics are updated and can be used, together with the regular Istio metrics. Okay, another improvement that you will see in this version is that under the workload details, the pod's car show the pod status. This pod status, the information that it collects, it has been improving. And now it's not only telling the information of the pod in general, but it's going to warn in case that any of the application container is going to have any problem. So now this is improved, and you will see that you will have extra information in the tooltip related to a warning that is related to a specific app container. Okay, so another fix that you will see is that the service health on certain scenarios has been fixed. So imagine that you have a service, for example, that is load balancing traffic across several workloads, but in the Istio context, in the mesh context, you may have some workloads that are inside the mesh, right? So you have a sidecar, but other workloads are, for some reasons, are not yet into the mesh. So before to do that, so we detected that Kiali has a bug. So when we have this situation, we have Istio traffic for the workload that are in the mesh, but we have a bug that we didn't collect the health in that misuse situation. So now it's fixed. And now if you have a service that has a mix of workloads that are inside or outside the mesh, so Kiali will update the service health as usual. So it will take the information of the traffic rate, and it will compute the health of the service on these scenarios. Okay, so another fix that is worth to mention is that the Istio config validation has been improved. So remember, so Kiali can read all the Istio configuration that you use for the mesh, and also it helps you to add additional validation. So one of the areas that has now supported are the cross-name validation for hostname. So in situations like this, that we have a destination rule, virtual service pointing to a host into a different namespace, which this definition has been created. So in the past, we need to mark this validation. So this host name like A with an information with a tooltip saying I cannot check if this host is wrong or right because I couldn't access to the other namespace. In this case, now is supported because Kiali is using directly the Istio registry and is going to compare this validation with the Istio registry. So if that host destination is not present into the mesh registry, it will be marked as invalid. Okay, that is from my side, and now I'm going to pass the mic to Jay. So Jay, I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and please. Can you share yours?
I can, although that wasn't really the slide for the demo, but that's okay. I'll talk about that too. All right, let me share out. And you can see the screen?
Yes.
All right, so this will just be a little bit of a demo to talk about edge labeling in the graph, which is something that really hasn't changed in a long time, but we've done a little bit of work here recently. Let me just make this as big as possible so it's clear. So if I go into the display menu and we go to the show edge labels section, if this is something that you've played with in the past, you'll definitely notice a few changes. So in the past, this selection area was basically radio buttons. You could pick one, and that's it for your edge labeling. As you can see, and then there was one dedicated option which just said no edge labels. But now you have no edge labels only if you haven't selected any of the edge labeling that's available. And you may have seen it on some of the earlier slides that demo that Lucas just went through. You could see a couple of edges in those where there was actually multiple values, which is something that's new. But before I go into that, I want to talk about what the slide was that we did the handoff on, was we've also added a new type of edge label, which is HTTP throughput. So in general, in the past, we've always seen request rate. So if I was to select that, this should look relatively familiar. You've got your requests per second, basically, on the edges. If you hover, you can see actually we've added some more units at this point to make it a little more clear. The RPS for requests per second. It also shows the protocol when you hover or select. But some people were interested in seeing throughput, which is basically either the request header size in bytes per second or the response data. And you can see now if you select that, you actually can choose whether or not you want to see throughput for your request headers or your response data. And more than that, you can see that now we've got actually two edge labels going on the edges, where we've got what we had before, which is requests per second, but now also bytes per second for the request header. And if I was to change it to response, you can see that number changes. Now it's giving me response data size per second coming back. And you can add pretty much as you want. Request distribution, I wanted to just show you here that nothing showed up because we've simplified the edge labeling when it comes to distributions. If you've only got one edge going from the source to the destination, we're not going to show that to you because it's 100% by default. It just saves a little space, especially now that we've got potentially multiple edge labels to display. It's helpful to condense it as much as possible. You'll also notice that by default you get edge labeling with units when you're actually displaying multiple edge labels. I wanted to also mention that for response times, if I was to add even more labeling, you've also now got a drop down. So in the past, you've always been, if you selected response time as your edge label, you always got the 95th percentile. Now you're able to change that to either average, median, 95th. You'll notice if I change this was 46, it dropped to 21 for the median, the average 20, and so forth, and then 99th percentile would likely be highest, 49 milliseconds. So that's what you've got now. If you go into the detail graphs, the mini graphs on the detail pages, you'll automatically get as much detail as we can give you for the edges. Since you're already looking at the detail at that point, we figured you probably want as much information as possible. So that's kind of fixed for you at the moment. And that's basically it. So we've got the new HTTP throughput labeling and the ability to play around with multiple labels and also giving you more selection ability for certain ones like response time and throughput. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jay. So need to continue with the slides. I'm sorry, I thought that you wanted to keep the slides. So yeah.
Oh yeah, no, sorry.
Okay, so no, as Jay commented, when we go to the details, in the mini graph, you will see all this labeling display as shown in the slide, right? So let's continue with the features that you will get in this version. So one important aspect from the installation configuration perspective is that we have consolidated the dashboard CRDs. Remember the monitoring Kiali dashboard objects as an optional way to add extra metrics into Kiali, especially focused for run times or other metrics that you want to bring to Kiali from your Prometheus. That was configured with an extra CR, and that makes that Kiali need to install those CRDs separately. This has been removed, and now the installation has been simplified. So all the configuration are part of the single Kiali CR handled by the Kiali operator. Okay. So as they commented, there is labels enhancement with the demo, right? And also we have in the past sprint that we finished this sprint, so we have consolidated improved patching. And I think that, Nick, would you like also to demo this feature from your side? You want me to stop sharing?
I'll share. Okay, can y'all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so the feature I'm talking about is the graph badging that was added. For context, whenever you have a virtual service on your node, you'll see something like this graph badge that indicates that there's a virtual service there, but it doesn't necessarily tell you all the traffic routing that might be happening on that virtual service. For instance, you could have fault injection or request timeouts. So the added badging, if we go to the legend here, there's now additional badging for fault injection, request timeouts, traffic shifting. So whenever these will show up whenever you add one of those scenarios through Kiali. So if I click through to the service and I go here to do actions, I can just get rid of this one real quick. Kiali supports adding these different traffic scenarios to your virtual service. So I can add a request timeout here, and you'll see a different badge pops up. And if I go back to the graph, that same thing is reflected on the main graph. And this just gives you additional information on what kind of traffic scenarios are happening with your virtual services, giving you a better high-level view of what's going on with your traffic routing. So some caveats with this is that these additional badges will only show up if you've added your virtual service through Kiali itself. That's probably something that will change over time. But right now, you won't see the additional badges. For instance, if you had applied those same YAML, if you had applied those traffic scenarios through YAML. So that's probably something that will change in the future. Sorry, let me get back to the graph here. I'm not sure where my graph went, but so that's probably something that will change in the future, that those will show up regardless of whether you added it through Kiali or not. But if you did add those through Kiali, then you should see these additional badges show up there for you. And that's all I had.
Okay, thank you, Nick, for the feature. Let me to share again the screen. Okay, so yeah, and now as introduction. We are working to improve the capabilities of Kiali, help you to troubleshooting your service mesh, specifically to get into the what the proxy Emboy is working, how it's configured, right, and how that the working is you can define how the traffic routes are working. And in this scenario, you will see new change. And I'm going to pass the mic to Leandro, that is going to demo this area. So, Leandro, would you like to start sharing the screen?
Sure. Yes. Can you see my Kiali?
Yes.
Okay. Well, in this demo, like Lucas said, we will see the new home for the Emboy information. This was previously this information was previously as in a modal under the actions in the overview, but now it's integrated at the workload details as a tab. So it is a tab. This change aims to give more visibility to Emboy information, to facilitate the debugging, and also to lay the groundwork to continue showing Emboy information in a better way, right? So we can see the subtabs with all the information. We have the clusters, the listeners, and the routes. But also you can see the bootstrap configuration, and even get a full config dump to take a deeper view into this information. And finally, we can see the Emboy metrics tab that previously it was at the workload details level as a runtime dashboard, but now for consistency is inside these tabs, into these subtabs too. So to showcase a little bit this how this information can be debugged or reviewed, we will use the bookinfo application, and after a few requests that I will generate, we can see, for example, in the tab, in the logs tabs, the proc page, for example, logs, and also the Istio proxy logs. We are interested in see the Istio proxy logs because we will see that we have some inbound and outbound traffic. For example, proc page wants to talk to details and reviews at the port 9080. So with this information, we can go to the Emboy tabs, and we will start to see the listeners because this information presents listeners in the Emboy. So we will go to the listeners, and we can filter by this port 9080, and we can see this specific listener. And in this point, we want to show that we added a new link to link a listener with a specific route, so you can go straight from this listener to this route. So this is very useful to go straight into the routes view with the filter pre-selected. And here you can see all the possible clusters, or the possible routes that you can go with your request. And finally, after looking this information, you can go to the clusters that are the final destinations, and also, if you want, you can do a filtering, so to see the final destinations that your request can be routed to. So this was the demo to show the new Emboy home, and that is from my side.
Thank you a lot, Leandro. Very interesting. And also just to note to the user that this is a very active area, and something of what some of the discussion that I presented at the beginning are also to focus on this area, just to understand how Istio users, what are the needs of the Istio user to debug the Emboy proxies, to debug the Istio mesh, what are the important information that you need to manually collect. That's something that Kiali can collect and process for you, and to save time and to give you better idea than what could be not working properly in the Istio via some misconfiguration or probably some kind of runtime. Okay, so let me to keep sharing the session. So yeah, this is all the recording session. So we are going to start the community area. So for that, I'm going to stop the recording.